We want to start out by continuing some more information on what land trusts are and what they govern. And then I would like to share a story with you about Susan and I, how we got to be on land trust. Then I would like to share with you some examples of Boston and talk a little bit about funding, because I know that coming next is a person that talks about this in more depth than I am. So that's basically going to be our agenda. And so we thought that, we would bring that energy, that continuation of energy. But the story, when you hear it, will give you an idea of how long this has taken us to get to where we are. It's sometimes people think this came to us overnight or within a month. No. So I want to bring that to you. I also want to understand that land trust, they are very helpful, and there are people doing it a lot now, but there are so many governance and things that we need to, that you know about. So without further ado, I'm going to let Lauren start that part. Then we're going to go into the story.
Okay. Yeah, I know that I understand everybody has like a basic understanding of what a land trust is. So if I'm too redundant, just tell me, or if I say something that doesn't make sense, just please interrupt me. So basically, in terms of land trust for affordable housing, I describe it as using the slave master's tools against them. Because my familiarity with land trust originally is that very, very wealthy people would use this as a vehicle to control, real estate resources in perpetuity and shelter them from taxes. So, as you all know, a land trust is the land is separated from the actual home. As a matter of fact, as I understand, most of Hawaii is in that similar sort of situation where people typically own a home there, but they don't own the land that the home sits on. So in the private markets, this is a well-established tool. The model for home ownership can be anything from individual homes, can be an individual home, a co-op, renters. So the ownership model is divorced from the land trust itself, or it can be a mixed model. One of the things that's really for me, the key issue about land trust is that it's a way to take resources out of the extractive food economy. So essentially, you've got a social control using basically the private property legal framework, which fails to provide for affordable housing. Okay, so in terms of running a land trust, one of the key issues is governance. It's one of the models is to have a board, and the board has maybe say 1/3 residents who live in the land trust, 1/3 people from the community, and then 1/3 people with maybe specialized skills, allies. That serves a couple of different purposes. One is that the people who live there should have a say into in their own life, their living conditions, even quote unquote, even if they're only renters. Please don't take air quotes. But it also, essentially, it provides a political base, and it provides a resource base to protect the land trust from being, to keep it viable and to protect it from external forces. So it makes it more difficult for people to go in there and say, try to get people to flip the properties, or to basically get rid of the land trust charter, etc. There's different different safeguards such as restrictive deeds, but what it really will come down to is that the people in the land trust have to have a commitment to the concept of the land trust. The real power is based in sort of a cultural common set of shared values. Okay, so essentially what we're describing is a way to use these tactical means within basically a legal framework to do something that it's not really designed to do, which is to socialize land. That really doesn't, a land trust can basically be a conjunction of people who, some people who maybe don't want to change, private property, legal structure, which is fine. Some people do, such as myself, which is also fine. But for people that have a shared interest in human life, who basically want to put human rights over property rights, then we have a common ground there, which would allow us to work together towards a shared purpose. And there's really no intrinsic conflict there. So that's all kind of dry, I think, but land trusts are also have to, are, aside from being political, they're the issue of funding, which Alma and Suzanne will get to talk about in terms of the story of the Cohip Land Trust is a critical limiting factor here. I mean, as you can imagine, there's just not a lot of funding for this. This is not a profit as in monetary profit. This is a profit as in social returns in terms of the welfare of people in the entire community. So I'd like to go ahead and let Alma take over.
Okay, so we're going to call this story 349 Park Street. Okay, and it starts in May of 2012, where I get someone ringing my doorbell. Now, I lived on the third floor of the triple decker. Susan lived on the second floor, and our landlord lived on the first floor. So someone rings my bell, and I just, without looking or asking me whatever, I just buzz the person in. And he's yelling up at me and goes, "Hey, if I buy this building, do you still want to live here?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he just said, "Well, do you want to still live here?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." So he leaves. But, he's yelling outside of my landlord's door. Susan, I talked to her and said, "Do you know anything about this?" And she says, "Alma, I don't know anything about that." So that's how it started. I'm going to let Susan tell her part, and then I'll end it, and then we'll move on.
Hi, I'm Susan, and I moved in before Alma did, 2011. I just moved in, excited about this place. I found my own place and signed a lease. And as the year went on, I could see repairs and promises weren't being met. And before I even got to a year, I moved in July. By February, this is when this incident happened. We started seeing people walking up and down the streets, auctioning, different properties on the street. I never associated it with our property, until in May when Alma eventually told me that she had gone on the internet and we found that the house had been on foreclosure. And still we had our landlord downstairs who was not communicating this to us and continued to come try to collect rent. Well, we were trying to ask him, you have lost the property, so what are you collecting? We don't even know who we're supposed to be. Then we were supposed to be paying the bank at this point. And so this just was caused a lot of confusion. And till up to 2000, I think that's when City Life stepped in and took over the property. And one of the issues City Life was facing was the monetary. And so they got Cohip involved and got, who in turn got investors. We had two investors in 2014, 2015. The first investor seemed a little promising, at least our rents were lowered, which was really good. And the second, but when it came to the issue of remodeling and sort of relocating us for the period of the remodeling taking place, that financial issue came up again. The second developer came in and we did the basement. This investor was very good, actually. He was always on top of things, but I guess about 2000, I would say Yeah, 15, 16. I think there are just too many issues with the house in terms of repairs. So they pulled out. So we had been we were living in boxes because we'd been promised to be relocated for almost over 2 years. And eventually we were moved. I was moved to another area, just probably 10 minutes away. Which was great. They helped with the moving and everything. So just to let you know, from 2012 and the remodeling ended, just moved back into, so I moved out of 349 for 8 months, 2017. Moved in back in 2018. So this whole thing has been going on since 2012. And of course, there were times where it was unbelievable that any of this was even going to happen. We're encouraged to move out, not believe that any of this could happen, or move towards the land trust. And so I'll hand it over back to Alma.
Okay, so one of the things in telling the story is what we wanted to let you know is that there was investors that they had to get to help with rehabbing our properties, because there's 6 of them. There's a lot of things that they try to get from the city to remove the asbestos in the houses and all those kinds of things. So we were inundated with all this. We had help, and it was wonderful. But it was uncertain times for us, and it was hard because we all had families, and we all had to, we wanted to stay in our homes, but it was a sacrifice that we all made. So, when I tell the story, I forget that part that is from 2012 to now, that we had to go through this. Investors coming in and out, people. We had to give our personal information, birth certificates, social security cards, and everything to get the funding. So that we had to do that. Interviews. We had to sit for interviews, for the family and how we were and what have you. And the times when they turned us down, and I would have to say, wait a minute, where's all my personal data? You know what I mean? So I'm letting you know that, it was a trying time, but it was also it was hard. It was long. It was not a short thing. So when you're thinking of the land trust, I want you to understand that it takes money, takes a lot of paperwork, investment times, and what have you. So I wanted to bring that to you guys to let you know that. So when they presented us with this land trust thing, we all were going, God, we just got back in our homes. Come on, you know what I mean? So they presented us with this, and I did some research and found out that this is a long-term thing for you if you get into land trust. This is not something that you just get on and you say, yeah. One of the things I was concerned about was, as Lauren said, I didn't want somebody else to come in and have to say, oh, come on, give me your property for $1,000. I could sell it for a whole bunch. No, that can't happen either. Okay, once you get on the land trust, you can pass this down to your family. Okay, you can also own your building or whatever improvements you make in your building. I thought that was very appealing. So I thought, I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So now, as ambassadors to this, that we had to go and sit in classes and learn about this and what have you, we had to go about all the residents and talk to the residents about this. Well, there's some residents that are very complacent. They're happy because they're in their homes, their rent's kind of affordable, and whatever. The thought of having to do anything else was very hard. So that's a challenge to get everybody to hear that, okay? And some people just said, okay, call me when you're ready, whatever. Well, now we're ready. We were at a point where we have this land trust. We've all, Susan Lawrence and I have gone and sat for interviews to go on the board, which we really, really want. I've encouraged residents to go. Please go. This is your chance to speak. This is your chance to, have some say in where you live and how you live and everything. Come on. That's going, that's going through. The board is, asked everybody who they, even outsiders, as Lawrence has said, do you want to be on the board? So we're at that point. We're not, we're not fully formed yet. We're getting there. Okay. So again, it's a long process. One of the things I wanted to tell you is that the name of our land trust is the Boston Neighborhood Community Land Trust. Okay, and I try to keep saying that so that everybody can hear it, because there's a lot in the city. But one of the unique factors about us is that we have our homes on our land trust. We have no business doing anything. Okay, and I think it's pretty historic. We are in that area that you guys probably been hearing about, the Fairmont line, okay, and the Four Corners area. Well, we're in there. We're right in that area. I have since moved to Beechwood Street, which is another house that Cohip owned, and it's now on the land trust. So I'm right near the Fairmont line. I'm right where the community area is, literally. So we are all in that whole row, that whole line on the Fairmont line, and also Four Corners. So this is going to be a great way to bring back that neighborhood that would go into foreclosure. So and it is a happy time for us, but it's a lot of work. So the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is the funding. Okay, there's a lot of investment that has to go on, but what happens is sometimes land trusts are the rent itself is supposed to be self-supporting the land. So whatever that you pay is supposed to support it. Okay, and Cohip has always told us that we just make it penny by penny. Here's the bills, here's the rent, here's the bills, here's the rent. But so now we're trying to get more investors to come. So they have grants that they have to write for. There's foundations. One of the foundations I did find that likes to deal with just land trusts is called the Burgess Urban Fund, and they love land trust people. So I kept that down. So those are things that you need to know, and so you'll need to do a lot of research in where to get money from the city, from from investors and things of that nature. I am learning about finance and how to, do read spreadsheets and stuff like that, because if you're going to be on the board, I think it's really important that we know how to deal with our budget and what have you. So those are the things that, we can pass along to all the other residents. Look, this is going to be communal. Everybody has to work together, and everybody has to try to learn about this some way, one little way that they can. So I wanted to tell you about that. Some examples of land trusts around the city. Okay, besides Boston Neighborhood Community Land Trust, you probably all heard of DSNI. Okay, there's another one that I'm happy to hear. I went to a meeting the other day that they fully became a land trust. It's called the Edison Street strip of land. They have a land trust. And it is basically they had a strip of land between their buildings, and they wanted to make it a land trust so that nobody else could use it, and they could use it for the community. So I thought that was very interesting. Highland Park Community Land Trust, they have one. I met them at a convening a while ago, but it was a vacant lot, but they just decided to make it a land trust for this. So there's variations of land trusts around the city. Okay, there's farms in Mattapan that have land trust. We just happen to be very unique where we just have homes right now. Futuristically, I think where they're going to is if we have a house that's in trouble that needs our help or whatever, they'll put it on the land trust. Okay, we do have one house that we just saved that City Life and Cohip stepped in on Alma Street. They are on the land trust. They chose not to stay on that, but I think it's telling that this family said, okay, they stepped in. They Cohip bought the house, they sold it back to the family for $1, put them on the land trust to save them, to they get, and they chose not to stay on there for whatever reasons they want, but that's the future, what's coming. And I think that you should know that as well. And do the tenants all like the idea? Yeah, we're mixed. I'm excited about it. Susan has been with me, and some other tenants too. I wish you could see us all. But mainly, I wanted to bring those things to you. I didn't want to. I didn't know if you have any questions for us. To have you? Go ahead.
Thank you. Danny, what did the investors get out of it?
Well, there are people who give to people for nonprofit, help people, or what have you. So the investors that I have listened to them say, like the one guy who came, he just wanted to help us. And he used the money to help us. And I think personal satisfaction, since we're a nonprofit, I don't see a profit coming. If he could just get his money back to turn it over for another one, I think that's what he was going with. Okay, I can see. Not yet. Not yet. We're waiting there. As I said, we're newly formed, and that board has not been, we went through interviews. We're waiting. We did one-on-ones right now. We're waiting for it to form. Then we'll go into the leases and all that stuff. And I think that's where Kobe was told. Go ahead, Eva.
As far as the funding, how much total funding would you say you need?
Okay, so remember I told you about our rent and the bills. Okay, so we need, and I'm going to give a rough estimate. I think we need at least. I don't even know how to say it, but 50% more money, so that we are not strapped. Because right now, with the repairs that we had, for my property alone, for all of our properties alone, I think we were $22,000 that we were short of money to finish the repairs. So we need to cover that and have something in the kitty for something, for emergency. So right now, we're pays off.
Okay.
And
Just pennies. Okay.
I just wanted to add to that,
Yeah,
because
not bad.
out of the, most land trusts are larger. So this particular land trust is very, very small scale, with the individual homes, and they're not located in one place, they're not contiguous. So it's a gap where a lot of CDCs, because of their economies of scale, for them it's just, okay, I can spend this money on 1 or 2 homes, or I can spend it on 20 or 15 or whatever. And so they just don't want to touch it. Cohip originally did not want to run the land trust themselves, but CDCs weren't willing to take over these disparate properties. And so really when you're talking about, local, basically a local impact, on the people at their, at the immediate scale, that's one of the big challenges for funding.
Okay.
Yeah, just so just to your point, so you're saying that CDCs will be able to fund the support of CLTs if there are larger land bases.
In general,
In
yes.
general, larger land bases, does it matter whether or not they're dispersed or if they're in one location? Do they have a preference? Do they like one area?
Well, one of the issues that's been described to me is the fact that the properties are dispersed, because then it makes maintenance more expensive. I don't really know the full answer to that, because if you have enough properties, then it's much more affordable to have a maintenance company come in and just do snow cleaning, snow plowing, et cetera, in all the different places. But we could, Alma.
That was an issue for us on our land trust right now, is that we didn't have enough for a new maintenance company because we're small. And so we had to use what we have, but that's an issue.
And what's the land base for your how many houses or?
We have right now 6 houses. We have Beechwood Street, Park Street, West Park Street, Hartford Street, and Gaston Street, and Speedwell.
And this is a mixture of like one family.
Three families, that's correct. That's correct. But we're all in Dorchester. We're not outside of Dorchester. Okay.
I think you probably said this, I'm just trying to puzzle it together in my mind. So the tenants pay rent, and then that goes towards,
The upkeep of the property as we speak right now.
okay, and does that go towards paying back the original investors?
They have, Cohip had, they got grants and they got outside investors and they got mortgages already for some of our properties. Now, some of the mortgages are phasing out, from what I understand, and then the next one, they really want to jump to the land trust so that then they can, do other things. So, in other words, you all have these mortgages that they took out, for us with the bank. Now those things are coming term, and so now that they just say, okay, so we don't have to deal with the banks now. Let's be self-sufficient. And so, okay, so that's where they're transitioning. It's one property after another. It's not all of us.
Right.
So it's like one property, and then the next one, the next one, the next one. And I thought I heard them say that in June that they had to redetermine that mortgage or re-sign again. So that was something that, yeah, we financed again. So we're dealing with that. But as we didn't know everything, so you're dealing with the two of us that have been feisty and wanting to know and been tenacious about asking these hard questions and saying, okay, you want us to go to the land trust, but what about this? What about this? What about this? How about my neighbor who just doesn't want to deal with that part? How are you going to deal with other people who you brought in new? There's new tenants now. There's the core of us that were there from the beginning. Now you have all these new people that come in and they go, wait, land trust, I got a section 8, why do I have to do that? That's a transition, okay? And we have to figure out that. And that's something new that I'm working on. And I will say that I have to learn that part, because that's like, how does that work? If you're renting as opposed to, I don't know, that part. Any other questions? I'm sorry, my back is too bad. And did you guys hear me back? We're good on that.
Becky has a question.
Okay.
So, I don't think you mentioned whether one of the purpose of the land trust is to keep the rents affordable, the housing affordable.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, I mean, that is the purpose.
That's one of them. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of them. The second one is to provide us with housing. Before we were all foreclosed. Our housing, we all of us
Keep people from being evicted.
right. Right. So that was a major. That was the first issue. The second issue they tried to take care of when they got investors and stuff, and they brought our rents down. But now that we're on the land trust and they're transitioning from taking it from COHIF to the land trust, we're still in limbo. Some of us don't have leases yet. Some of us, our rent went up a little bit to accommodate, over income and, different things going on there. So right now, we're hoping, that once the board is formed, that they can, reevaluate that, because that is something that still has to be done.
And also, when you think of like the Fairmont line, we had a rally there in the end of January. So you have a black and brown working class white neighborhood. They spend over 22 years fighting to get a transit stop. Then as soon as a transit stop comes in, people are just displaced wholesale. And basically it's a catch-22. It's like, we're not going to service you people. We're just not going to give you a train stop. We're not going to give you whatever. But if we do give it to you, we're going to move you out. So guess what? We're just not going to serve you. And so this is the reason when Alma explained to me about the land trust, why it attracted me to work with it, is that I don't want to live in that kind of community. I lived in Cambridge and I moved to Roxbury. And for me, even though I don't have any financial gain from it, I feel healthier when I don't look around and see, when I see a more varied, landscape. When I
You
don't
can say it,
feel
Lauren.
okay, so when it was basically like the raisin in the milk, and there was like 2 black people on my block and nobody else for like a wide radius around us. And in Cambridge. And, like if I call the police, they will walk over to the white person and talk to them, tell me not to cause trouble.
Oh.
I mean, this is over the course of years. I mean, so there's a real benefit to the community. And if you're looking for things like racial justice, you want to fight just the displacement. Well, the only systemic solution that I see on the horizon right now is something like this, where we're taking a mechanism that's used by very wealthy people, and it's being repurposed to prevent, the market from just churning people, just chewing them up and spitting them out.
Okay.
Last question slash
Oh,
comment.
okay. Thank you.
So what is the difference between when a community development corporation, a nonprofit develops like nonprofit affordable housing that's permanent, right? And a community land trust. I'm not understood. Like what is the difference and why is one better than the other?
But see, when you say permanent though, what is, because
Because the nonprofit, like JPNDC, for instance, owns this building. It's a nonprofit, they're a CDC, they develop affordable housing. And CDCs have very, different definitions of affordability, but aren't they developing housing that's owned by a nonprofit with a mission for
unless there's
affordability?
deed restrictions, it's not permanent. I mean, so
Have we seen anything?
I don't know specifically. I do know that this is, purchased by CDC, which is why City Life were able to have these offices here. But one of the things about, the real solution, I can dial it back. When you say permanent, a lot of times permanent is just not even on the table. So with deed restrictions, it can be hopefully permanent, but land trust gives you just an extra layer of protection.
Okay.
From somebody deciding to take permanent affordable housing and profit out.
So like if JPNDC changed their mission, they would be able to make this a housing.
Well, I can't speak to that specifically, but I mean, if they have permanent deed restrictions, and you really want to ask a lawyer about that, but a lot of the times what's marketed as affordable housing is not really enforceable long term. Okay.
And the one thing about the land trust is that we could talk and as a community and say, hey, what's affordable? Remember, our rents pay the bills right now. So if we got extra funding and then we could keep it lower. And then we could, you know what I mean? So those things we could talk about.
So
CDC,
maybe more democratic.
right. If your CDC is not, it's just going to do what's best for tax base and the city.
And so just a little bit more, but part of the reason though, for instance, a lot of land trusts, they have the board, residents, community, and then,
Outside.
specialists and outside, is that you have a governance system which it's not that easy to flip. Because you can't just go to Lawrence and say, I'm gonna do a sweet deal.
Yeah.
Because I don't have control of the land and I can't just take over control of the land.
Right.
So by having all the residents involved, that's a key part of it. And then having a board that's diverse in terms of stakeholders, that's a key part of it because it gives support, but it also buffers against, the ability, to take over.
Mm-hmm.
This is truly an eviction free zone as a deal.
Yes. Yes.
Long-term.
Yeah. Long term. Yeah.
We'll end now, but I think you can kind of chat them afterwards because we're going to move into our breakouts now.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're
Alma.
very
Thank you,
welcome.
Suzanne. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come again.
Yes, please do. And next week, wrapping up the month will be Tony Hernandez from DSNI.
Yeah.
And he'll talk specifically about community land trust for commercial real estate. Yeah. But I imagine, as you stated, that he'll probably expand on some of what you talked about. Yep.
Okay.
Cool. I thought you
That's one of the biggest challenges. When I said half position, we're the little people. It's a very small land trust, and it's just families. So yeah.
Cool.
Right.
Want to stop recording now, Sarah? Okay. Cool. So tonight, our fundraising and investor outreach and anchor institution outreach.